looks like it's just 8:30, so we'll go ahead and get started. And I would like to call the meeting for the Planning and Economic Development Policy Committee to order today on Wednesday, June 11th. And we'll start with the approval of the minutes from May 14th. Do I have council members Gardner and Jurinsky on? I should have asked first.
I approve.
Okay, great. And Councilmember Gardner? Well, I approve as well, so we'll go ahead and approve those minutes. And then we'll start with our first item, which is the housing UDO analysis. Janine.
Good morning, everyone. Janine Rustad, Director of Planning and Business Development. As I mentioned last month, and this is our monthly update, the project has kicked off. The consultant multi-studio is hitting the ground running. They've started with the code audit and also working closely with Brandon Camerata, our planning manager for current planning, working out the engagement schedule because this is going to be crucial to this project. So we have 3 categories for engagement. The first is listening sessions. Those are going to be people not included in the next 2 categories, but also some people that we need to dive a little deeper with. So some developers, maybe some smaller developers, consultants. These were being flexible, whether they're in person or via a Teams or video conferencing. And they may be either one-on-one conversations with the consultant and individuals or groups, or group conversations. And I'll go through the timeline of these after I describe each of them. The next is our developer roundtable. So for developers on the phone, if you are not on the roundtable distribution list from last year, please contact Crystal Vigil. Crystal, if you can pop your email in the chat, that'd be great. If not, we'll distribute it out. But the developer roundtables are that opportunity for the consultant to really get that crucial feedback, both on how things are working or not working right now in the code. Then as we draft the topic area papers, getting into those, and then the draft code, of course, helping us review that. And we'll have to see if we do any more pilot projects because we had some success with those with the process improvements we undertook and completed this year. Then finally, we will have education sessions. This will be focused on public officials, including our Planning and Zoning Commission and our City Council. And these, let me go through the timing. So the phase of the code audit, we will have a listening session, and I actually should share, we have a draft timeline. I'm trying to share, bear with me. Are you all seeing the timeline?
Yes.
Great. So here we are in June, and part of also what they're doing is project tours, both in the beginning and the end. The tours, they also want to help inform the process, so inform these engagement, the initial engagement. So I had this down earlier, looking for so 3A are the listening sessions. So here as they do the code analysis, wrap that up. And then once they have the draft code, they will hold more listening sessions. Developer roundtables, we are looking at the week of July 17th, potentially. I believe there are several holds on people's calendars. And then again in November, September, once we have the informational documents, and then with the draft code in November. And then finally, educational sessions. We are looking October, but we have started to discuss who initially we should talk to, especially from our council, looking at PED. These would be one-on-one conversations because you're also hearing things from our development community. You can see on the timeline that we do anticipate having that draft code in November. We'll have it a little before we start the engagement on it, as we want to make sure staff and legal look at it and it works from that standpoint. One thing we need to add in here, working with communications, is our general public engagement. We want to make sure we're getting information out because this may impact some neighborhoods. Thinking infill areas as well as Ward 2, there are a lot of residents there already and want to make sure they know how things may change. So that's where we are. The next step is getting that code audit and kicking off the engagement. I believe Brandon may be driving, but as you have questions, I may enlist his help in answering them.
I have one to start with. Just will we be able to, as PED, you said one-on-ones, will we be able to see the draft code before? Like, I don't want to be seeing it like when it's ready to go to council for approval. I mean, will we have enough time to give input on it?
We can build that into the schedule to make sure. Now, looking at, we are being very aggressive with the schedule with starting the adoption process. But November, looking at a planning and zoning commission hearing in February, so let's say PED in January, I think we should be able to fit that in.
Wait a minute, what did PED in
I'm
January?
I'm looking at this bottom line 6 adoption of the final code.
Oh.
We have planning and zoning in beginning of February, so that would put us at PED in January. So we
okay,
can have the draft
final.
code to you. Yeah, yep. But have the draft one to you in November so you can comment.
Is there any way to have it before November? Like, you have a draft, don't you?
Let us talk to the consultant. We want to at least have staff look at it first before we start sharing it, so you're not reading something that we see doesn't work.
Okay. But my concern is when it gets to us late, like typically in past years when we get things literally at study session, it's just not enough time to really delve into it and to give, really good feedback. You're trying to like get your packet read for the whole entire weekend before the Monday meeting, and something like this is so detailed that I just think it deserves a little bit more time for council members to to have input on it.
And that's where having those informational, or what do we call them, the educational sessions with council through one-on-ones. So getting that to you ahead of those, being able to walk you through it. We will be focusing on PED members, but then also anyone else who PED may recommend, and as council members have time, recognizing that November things may or may not change. There will be some changes, at least one.
Yeah. Okay, so this is just code changes. Are we going to be looking, because I would like to look at zoning. So I don't, if we maybe for the next meeting have kind of an update on our current zoning and what could be changed. I mean, I know we normally do a comp plan, but again, that always ends up being at the last minute, and nobody can, and council members just really don't have time to give adequate input. So is that something that we could do as far as looking at current and then potential changes?
That is the code audit that's being undertaken right now, is looking at our zoning. What may we need to change to allow
so
for
this
more
analysis is not just code. It's
sorry, I used the two interchangeably. I should say UDO. My apologies.
Oh, okay. So this is UDO. Okay.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Phew.
Sorry.
No, my fault.
I know. Well, when I think code, I think,
municipal code.
We have to change municipal code. Councilmember Jurinsky or Gardner?
I don't have anything other than just, I think we're on the same page here, Councilmember Bergan, that I want to look at different zoning, but and this might be a big undertaking, but I want to look at zoning for the entire city. I mean, the whole city, developed land and undeveloped land.
Absolutely. And that's part of undertaking this right now is we have differences, whether it's infill or greenfield. Should we have those differences is one of the questions. Is there different considerations when there's infill? So it is not just for the area east, it is a citywide looking at the housing standards.
Okay. Thank you. I think Councilmember Gardner is still trying to get on.
No, I'm here, and I don't have anything to add other than to reiterate what you said. I think earlier the better, because I don't want to get it on Thursday and have to be expected to approve it on Monday. So earlier the better.
Okay,
Understood. Thank you.
great. Thank you, Janine. Okay, next is the land use legislation.
So again, Janine Rusted, I am going to turn it over to Lena McClelland, the attorney for land use and planning, to discuss bills that passed this session.
Fantastic. Hello, Chair and members of the committee. As Janine said, my name is Lena McClelland. I am the Assistant City Attorney who advises the planning team and planning department. And I'm going to go over high level some of the legislation related to land use in the last legislative session. And then if there are further questions, please let me know. So I'm just going to start with there were, as you all are probably well aware, it was a very busy legislative session. Ended just recently on May 7th. There were more than 700 bills that were introduced into the state legislature, and a small portion of those are land use. Let's see some of the first bigger ones that I'm going to go over. We have the House Bill 25-1056, that is the Local Government Permitting Wireless Telecommunications Facilities Bill. So this bill provides that a telecommunication provider's completed application to site and construct or substantially change a new wireless service facility is automatically approved if the local government does not make a decision on the application within 90 days. This 90-day decision period may be tolled one time for a period of up to 45 days if the local government determines that it doesn't have the capacity to review the application because of other pending applications for other land use and development issues. But they must be related, those pending applications must be related to affordable or attainable housing, renewable energy, government projects, etc. So there's only that 145-day toll period. If the local government chooses to exercise this tolling authority, it has to notify the telecommunications applicant in writing within 30 days of the tolling with their reason for choosing to toll the application. It's complicated. There's a lot of timelines going on with this, so we'll see how this plays out. This bill was signed by the governor, let's see, what was the date? On June 4th. So this bill did go into law. And it is effective on January 1st of 2026. So we have a little bit of time to implement it. And then we have House Bill 25-1093, which is limitations on local anti-growth land use policies. So this bill expanded the existing prohibition on anti-growth laws to generally applicable land use laws in what's known as census designated urban areas that expressly decrease permitted residential density or residential uses of land after July 1st of 2025 without corresponding increase of residential density or uses elsewhere in the jurisdiction. That bill has an effective date of August 6th of 2025. Then we had House Bill 251113, which limits turf in new residential development. This expanded a 2024 bill that prohibited local entities from installing or allowing others to install non-functional turf, non-functional artificial turf, or invasive plant series in new developments or redevelopment projects, to include multifamily residential housing that includes more than 12 dwelling units. Functional turf is still allowed under this act. So sports fields, things like that, still allowed. Then we had, if you all remember, the bill that was colloquially referred to as YIGBY, or Yes in God's Backyard. That was House Bill 251169. That was the housing developments on faith and educational land. So if you remember, this bill would have allowed real property owned by faith-based organizations and schools to bypass zoning requirements from local governments. This bill passed in the House, but died in the Senate, so it did not move forward.
Thank goodness.
Yes. Then we had the House Bill 251272. This was the construction defects and middle market housing bill. So this bill creates a multifamily construction incentive program for multifamily attached housing of 2 or more units starting in January 1st of 2026. This is a voluntary program for builders that limits actions to defects claims and specifies a claimant's duties when they're bringing a defect claim. It does require local governments to establish a fast-track approval process for applications for for-sale multifamily condominium projects in order for them to qualify for assistance from the State Affordable Housing Fund. Didn't go quite as far as I think we were hoping with construction defects, but is a step in the right direction. Then we have House Bill 251273. That's the Residential Building Stair Modernization Bill. This bill requires municipalities with a population of 100,000 or more that are served by a fire protection district, fire authority, or fire department that is accredited to allow to adopt or amend their building code to allow up to 5 stories of multifamily residential buildings to be served by a single exit. So we can no longer require 2 stairways for multifamily buildings of up to 5 stories. So we will likely need to change or amend our building code in order to be in compliance with this bill. We have to be in compliance by December 1st of 2027. This act did include a safety clause, so it took effect in May of 2025, so it's already in effect. And then that's the last kind of major
ADU?
one.
Isn't there an ADU?
No, that was 2024.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And that's kind of the last major one. There's a few smaller ones, but my memo, I think, was provided in the packet. And so if you all can read that if you have any further questions on those ones. And if you have any questions on these, I'm happy to answer them. Or if you have any questions that you think of after this meeting, please feel free to reach out to me via email.
All right. Thank you, Lena. Council members Jurinsky or Gardner, any questions?
None from me. Thank you.
Okay, I have,
No questions for me.
oh, none, sorry. I think you said none. I have one, and it's on the House Bill 251093, limitations on anti-growth. So you said this is specifically for highly, like the census data, that it's like a high density area, basically?
Yeah, it's in areas that are designated as urban.
Okay, so do we know what that is? I mean, we can, it's just kind of,
Yeah, so at this point, we have not looked into that, but I believe, and I'll maybe defer to Janine on this, but I believe that's something that our GIS team would be able to figure out. But I do believe we are designated as urban by the census in Aurora.
but would that, like, do we know if that's just TOD sites or North Aurora? I mean, it's not the whole city of Aurora, obviously. Right,
I
right.
don't know the answer to that. That's a good question.
I mean, they pass these bills and they don't necessarily always give us, all the information we need.
Yeah.
So I guess, are we able to determine that or is that determined by the state? Those
Let
areas
that would be determined by the census.
by the census.
Yeah.
And
but
let us take a deeper dive and we can come back next month
Okay.
and give an answer.
yeah,
if
I mean,
that's
it's
all
kind
right.
of confusing because the census obviously covered every single jurisdiction, but what does that mean? Does it mean the census in certain, that increased by X percentage in an area? It's very vague.
Yeah, so the census designates areas as like urban or rural or things like that. So it's not just related to it's not just the population data that they collect. It has to do with like the density of the population in certain areas. I'm not sure if the entirety of the city is designated as urban, but I know that at least a good portion of it is.
So if that's the case, a good portion of it, then we cannot determine our destiny in terms of current zoning that we might have in place.
So what the bill says is that if you are going to decrease permitted residential density or uses of land, you have to then increase that in, like, you have to basically
Balance it out.
move it. You have to balance it out, right? So if you're going to decrease it in one place, you have to then balance that by increasing it in a different place, right? So you couldn't just say all of North Aurora cannot have increased density or residential development
Okay.
without then saying that that would be displaced somewhere else.
Right. Okay. I just lost my train of thought. I was going to ask you. Is this part of our lawsuit?
No, there are no bills from 2025 legislative session that are part of the lawsuit at this
So
time.
this one probably should be.
Yeah, Chair,
Go
Chair,
ahead.
this absolutely needs to be a part of our lawsuit.
So I would be happy to have that conversation with the other jurisdictions that are part of that lawsuit and bring it up.
Okay.
At this point, there has not been any discussion of adding the 2025 bills. There was sort of a thought that maybe we would in the future, but I'd be happy to make have that conversation on behalf of Aurora.
Yeah, that would be great. At this point, I don't, it's just the state is telling us what to do in every aspect of our life and specifically land use. And I've never seen anything like this. And I think we definitely need to, have communication with our fellow jurisdictions and just fight back on this because at this point, we don't know how our city's going to look in the future. It's going to be dictated by the state. Anyway, sorry.
Chair,
Makes me nuts. Yes, Councilmember Jurinsky.
thank you. Lena, can you send an email update to the committee? I'd prefer not to wait until the next PED committee. And if someone can loop in maybe Attorney Pete Schulte, I don't care what the other jurisdictions are even doing on this. I mean, happy to have a conversation with them. Hopefully we can work with them. I would like a lawsuit filed in court immediately over this.
I will I'll contact Pete today and have a conversation with him and have him reach out to you all.
Great. Thank you very much. Hey, that was it on legislation, right?
Yep, that's it.
It wasn't enough. 700 bills introduced. That's, next year, maybe they'll shoot for 1,000.
I really hope not.
Not either. Okay, thank you, Lena.
Absolutely.
And then next, that was pretty short agenda today. So we have, I don't even think we have any reports. Oh, Chance, Havana Bit, are you here, Chance? Hi.
Good morning, everyone.
morning.
Thank you. I just wanted to share some updates. I haven't done some in a while, and I do know Janine and I wanted to present, but I can get on another schedule, or I can just do mini updates at the next PED meeting so that we don't extend this heavy agenda moving forward. I can do mini updates moving in the next couple of months. But just real briefly, I know some city council have been working with Jurinsky and some others, one regarding the crime forums, which have been excellent and really well attended. So thank you to city staff and council members for supporting the events. I think we've had really great engagement and conversations. And I will say, even from the last meeting we hosted regarding hospitality and warehousing challenges for property crimes, there were really great suggestions regarding solutions and then partnering with other hotels. So I just wanted to say thank you because we've heard from a lot of our stakeholders and they actually feel heard. And I think it's like a little therapy session for bars and property owners and restaurants that are all going to very similar things. On a positive note, the district is doing really well. Of course, we're still 96% leased. Every time a business closes, another one opens. I mean, seriously, the same day they announced their closure May 1st. Hong Kong rice noodle closes, and then the next day, Asian American Chinese moves in the next day. Some of the announcements, just really briefly, since most of the planners are on here. Of course, the redevelopments are all occurring this year along on Havana Street, including a lot of our motor mile. So we have Champ Ford, Mazda, and Hyundai. We also have the redevelopment at Stevenson Toyota East by the Ashbury Group, Circle K. We also are welcoming a new Argentinian Uruguay restaurant and empanadas this week. Today's actually their soft opening, and then their grand opening will be this weekend. Orejano, I know at the Coffee with the Cop at the Gardens, people got to try the empanadas. They're really good. And then we also have another Hong Kong cuisine opening. Unfortunately, Menya Ramen and Poke closed, and now a Hong Kong cuisine will be moving in. Lastly, our night markets and .0 concerts are live on our website. So we'll do night markets on the last Saturdays of the month at Lisa Kaya at 2710 South Havana Street at Havana and Yale from 6 to 10 p.m. This month, we'll have some pride showcases as well as global cultures, kind of featuring and tagging along with a lot of the Global Fest coming up this weekend. We also been doing and sponsored, which is very unique. 9 News allowed us to sponsor 9 Things to Do to feature local and small shops that typically can't afford that type of media and exposure. So we've actually done a 9 Things to Do takeover. So I encourage you all, go to 9 Things to Do on their website and check out some of the new promotions. We've actually been hosting segments on live television to also give a lot of our stakeholders that face time. Everything's paid for. All the assets are given to the stakeholders as well. It's a big part of our marketing budget, and a lot of our businesses request it and also really value it and put it on their social media platforms and their website. I can go into more detail. City tax and licensing has been exceptional to work with and getting some of the data and numbers. I know a lot of the town halls have been focusing on the budget. So far, Havana, I will say the first quarter has been slow. I think most retail and restaurants have reported. We have spoken and visited, done business visits. It's picking up this month. I don't know if it's Cinco de Mayo, graduations, Mother's Day, Father's Day, all the other holidays coming up. But I have heard that retail and restaurants have been a little busier this month. However, I will say the first quarter was pretty brutal. Just to do a quick snapshot, total sales were 8.4. Last year, we were 8.6. So just a little down. The food and dining was about 1.4 and automotive was 2.2. So just a few percentages down. However, we are looking forward to having a busy summer. So let's hope we can shop local and buy local, which is partly why the 9 Things to Do campaign is featuring a lot of the very small and global restaurants and eateries and markets. Lastly, I just wanted to answer any questions because I know there were a couple of representatives on this call. So if there's any quick questions, I can take them now. And if not, I just would put in the chat. We also is unpaid. This is all networking and stakeholder engagement. But Westward actually has been featuring, they paid a journalist to feature all of the on Havana Street restaurants that have dine-in until he eats at every single one. So his name is Anthony Bruno. highly recommend checking out the articles. It's not review based. It's very positive. It's more storytelling. One of the pitches we did to them and why we stopped supporting the Westward was they weren't positive about Aurora and they weren't representing our businesses. You know, they only talk about on Havana Street for food, but they don't talk about anything else. And so these articles were trying to help showcase some of the restaurants and give them some love, especially since sales have been down most recently. But thank you all for your time.
Thank you, Chance. That's great. So you basically stopped advertising and then they reached out to you. Is that what happened?
So there was some challenges with the media, with the city of Aurora and Visit Aurora. Last year, it was a pretty big deal. They did host a meeting in person, trying to rebuild the relationship. The board obviously is very conservative with our advertising and marketing. A lot of the times they're trades. So even with Aurora Borealis or other festivals that may not be in the district, the way that we get our vendors and our businesses, because they can't afford these $3,000 to $5,000 vendor fees. If we sponsor, then it exclusively gives our stakeholders and really small mom and pop shops an opportunity to serve and vend and do food. So similar to the Westward, when they host events and engagement, in the past, they would reach out to us to give exclusivity so that our small mom and pop taco shops or restaurants or new trattoria and Italian restaurants could have the opportunity to kind of compete in that Denver metro area for upcoming events and catering. So the Westward has, definitely reached out. It has been more positive, I will say. However, we're still trying to build upon that relationship. Media is not always our friend. And so try to make sure that those positive conversations and outreach and making sure to connect them to actual voices, let them interview the bartenders, the ownership, the property owners. And so that way, when the quotes are done, they have a real relationship. They actually do film. Even some of our grand openings, they've come and there hasn't been any exchange of sponsorship or funds. But in the future, hopefully we'll be able to do more exclusive content, especially with rebuilding this relationship.
Great. Good work. Councilmember Jurinsky or Gardner,
Yeah.
any comments?
I am.
Questions?
Chance, first, I just want to tell you, I think you do an incredible job, and you have been my council appointee on the BAB since I joined council, and truly and genuinely, you honor me. And I just want you to know that I thank you for all the hard work that you do. The media is not always our friend.
Our friend.
And several of us know that. I had my go round with the Westward, and then all of a sudden, they came back around too. So don't be afraid to stand up to the media and good for you. I love hearing that. One thing I
Make
would
the
like to say,
corrections when they need to be made, just like you said, because that's one of the things especially when businesses feel like they're not really heard.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to have that little oomph, Chance. Just that's that little bite in your tone. One thing I wanted to say is you're at a huge leased rate. I mean, your vacancy rate is very, very small on the Havana bid. But if you hear of any of these places that you think, obviously I know this industry very well, but if you hear of any of these places, and I guess it doesn't have to be just the food service industry, any of the businesses on Havana, if you hear of any of them starting to struggle to the point where, they're getting behind on rent, I mean, it's like really getting serious. And I don't know if they talk to you about their financials or anything like that. I have nothing idea about your operations. But if you hear of any that are getting to that point, will you please keep an ongoing list with me so that I can track that and come alongside you to offer support? Great. Yeah, if you'll just send me maybe a monthly email and just kind of let me know what's going on over there. I would love to have more contacts throughout the city to keep an eye on more businesses. But that the rest of the city is on an individual basis as business owners reach out to me. You have a whole network at your fingertips. So if you could just send me a monthly kind of, hey, this place is looking like it might not make it, whatever. Will you just send me a monthly email and let me know?
I can definitely do that. And I can also do a brief update. We used to do more detailed updates at PED. I just know it got a little lengthy with so many openings. And so that's why I kind of held off. And, I do have a lot of individual conversations with everybody on this call. So it's been, really great to keep in touch. But I think I'll definitely do more sharing at the PED. A lot of the event venues, of course, the Stampede, I think you told me 30% down. Some of it
Yeah.
is fear in the community. Of course, we serve a very large immigrant and global community, so some people are not going out to eat or shopping locally. I've heard a lot of DoorDash and delivery services. The restaurants are definitely struggling. I've heard retail, many of our grocery stores, I think with the inflation costs, whether it's tariff or workforce driven, I think everyone has seen groceries in general have gone up. So I don't think it necessarily means just our global markets. But I have heard
Eggs are
that
down.
eggs
Eggs
are
are down.
down. Eggs are down. Yes. But no, thank you. I really appreciate that. It's been an interesting year for sure. Lots of property ownership changes. Probably a significant number of parcel changes, even within the last 6 months. So the 209 stakeholders that pay that 4.5 mil levy, first decade or 12 years were pretty much the same. I would say in the last 5 years, it's turned over pretty significantly. And I think part of that reason is most of the planners see the Havana is very busy, is a lot of the properties are locally owned and family owned. And a lot of the families on their 80s and 90s. And so these part of the sales are portfolio sales. They're just selling all of their assets at this time. And so it's been challenging to chase after new business owners and new property owners. But at the same time, it's also bringing new life to Aurora, new sales tax. And so just some new ones I didn't mention. Dave's Hot Chicken is coming. I've never had it before. I'm embarrassed to share, but I will tell you the community is like super excited for a Dave's Hot Chicken at the Gardens on Havana. And so there's quite a few other businesses. I do know they won't share what brand, but at Dick's Sporting Goods, because of Leetsdale location, their flagship will be open or has already opened. The one on Havana closed sooner. And I do know they had an LOI with a wellness related lease. I'm assuming a gym. They won't share what yet. So we might be getting a gym in that space. So just an example to council, even though some of the stakeholders are struggling, we have to be honest about that. There's so much desire to be in Aurora and on Havana Street that even when Dick's announced their closure a few years ago, there's been so much interest even in that large square footage. The one I could use help on is Gibby's has been closed for over almost 5 years. That 8,000 square feet is a challenge. We've had tap rooms and breweries. It's just really hard to lease 8,000 square feet right now for restaurants. So that's kind of the only one I would say. Most of the other ones are pretty small, 1,000 square feet or less. Like I mentioned, Havana is still pretty desirable. So we work with Bob and the other teams, but quite a few people reach out wanting to relocate from Arvada to Aurora. So A-Town to A-Town. So it's been kind of fun to see a lot of that change and some new businesses coming to Aurora. But thank you for everything and appreciate everybody for the time. I went a little longer only because I know we don't have that big of an agenda, but thank you so
wanted
much.
to make a point on you mentioned auto sales was down.
Yes.
So that's interesting because I'm on the M&F and Chair Gardner.
Yes.
We have the sales update every month.
So
And
the city is actually doing a little better than Havana.
well, a lot
right now.
better. It was actually, so that's why I'm surprised. And maybe Councilmember Gardner will remember this, but we had, when the presentation was given to us, they said that actually because of potential tariffs, they had a huge increase in auto sales.
So there was an increase, but I guess also to keep in mind, 4 to 5 of our major dealerships are under major redevelopment and construction.
Oh, right.
So
Okay.
number of units, space, obviously the shopping experience is probably not as the greatest since you're going through a construction site. If you've driven down Havana, having Ford, Hyundai, Mazda, and even Stevenson Toyota being under remodel is going to impact our motor mile sales tax the past 2-3 years.
Our tax, so if people are buying, let's say on Arapahoe Road, one of the dealerships there, we still get the tax revenue.
Yes, because it's
Yes.
based on, yeah.
Right.
But
Okay.
I just know the number of units. So usually Havana is known for volume of units. So
Yeah.
even like the Subaru, I think they're the top 5 in the not in the country, in the world,
Oh.
in regards to units that they sell, similar to Ford as well as Hyundai. Hyundai actually does pretty well as well in the global market, compared to Colorado. And so, and of course, everybody knows the Stevenson brand still does really well, even though it's owned by Ashbury Group now. So I would say that that's one of the things that I was going to pitch to Janine is most of this people in this meeting are more interested in the sales tax. And we've been working very closely with them. They've given us great data and numbers. I wonder if we do like a short 10-minute sales tax highlight, because Trevor Vaughn and his team have been really great in regards to getting some numbers. And Bob can also
I
share
see
some of
Bob's
the
hand is
trends
up right
we're
now.
seeing as
If-
well. Thank you.
Yeah, Bob's hand is up.
If I may, Councilmember Bergan, before Bob, we are working with the retail team to revamp the quarterly retail reports, make it more relevant, more digestible. So Bob?
Yeah, we are on the schedule to give that report. We have 2 reports coming up, ICSC recap, and then of course the mid-year report on sales tax. So yeah, they're on the agendas for, I think, the next 2 PEDs.
Great. Thank you, Bob. All right. Well, thank you, Chance. We appreciate it. Are there any other, I mean, I don't see anybody else that had a report, so I think we're good. For next meeting, so well, Janine, we're going to have the ICSC recap next meeting?
ICSC recap, more on the housing, and I will need to look at the agenda. I think that the chamber can come, and Chance, if you wanted to do a year in review.
I actually would love to have the Business Advisory Board give a presentation. We haven't had one all year, and I don't even know if we had one last year. And then the other thing I would like to have is, we talked about this at the beginning of the year, so I don't know where it fits in the schedule, but an overall view of development in the entire city.
I have been coordinating with Jacob, and I think that might be why Laura popped on.
Yes, we are scheduled for next month with your permission, Chair Bergan, to give the quarterly development review update, and we can tag team the overview you're looking for with that standing presentation to this body.
Could you, they did it a couple years ago, I think, maybe it was
Yes.
last year. And so will it have the maps also? Because that's very.
Yes, absolutely.
perfect.
We'll have visuals and we can incorporate that as part of that presentation.
Okay, very good. Okay, so sorry, Janine, so we have ICSC recap, we have the housing, and then we have the development review with.
Yeah, with the overall. And then I need to check my notes on the timing for the chamber to give their update, and then
BAB. I would love.
BAB might need to be August to give them some time to prepare, excuse me. But also give Chance, I'd love to see the year in review, because they are having so much success. Chamber is August.
Chamber is August. Okay. Okay, very good. Well, our next meeting is July 9th. Same place, same time. So everyone have a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.